All right, and we are live, everybody. Guess what? It is Friday, and guess what? Nothing's broken. Woo! I actually got everything fixed. Welcome to the NPCs weekly news live stream. It is, oh God, what is today? August 14th, 2020. I'm Travis, of course, and as always via Discord, because of a nice giant global pandemic where we really shouldn't be around everybody, is Kyle. Hey, Kyle.
What's up?
All right, so before we get into the news, before we roll the intro, really quick mention, of course, about kind of what happened with last week's news. So for some reason, my router kind of blew up on itself. The way we stream here at the NPCs, especially for the news, is I use a Raspberry Pi to take our stream and split it so that way we stream to both Facebook and we stream to YouTube at the same time. What that does for us is it saves on costs because we don't have to go and pay another service to actually do it. So the downside with that though too is that that's something that I manage. So that's actually literally something that's just sitting over here on the other side of my room. With that said though, my internet went all belly up and changed something that then freaked my router out, which I had to go back and try to fix and took about 2.5 hours or so to sort out. And then once everything was said and done, I did a test stream on my own personal Twitch channel, and everything was nice and happy. So apologies about no news this last week. We tried everything that we could to get things set up. Unfortunately for us to do the stream the way we like to, this is, this is kind of how we really like to run it. So anything that's not at least of this, we don't really like to do. With all that said, though, now, of course, addressing what happened last week. In this week's news, of course, we've got a nice big spat between two big companies versus one big company. We've got the delay of a game that we are expecting to launch, of course, with the new consoles. And we have a surprise possible leak about when one of these next consoles is actually going to come out. So we're going to roll that intro and we'll get things going. All right, so let's go ahead and hop in here to our first story. And this is actually, I think, probably the biggest story. Kyle, I'm sure you could probably argue with me that it's otherwise here. Of course, as I move this to center on my screen. This comes to us from The Verge. Apple just kicked Fortnite off the App Store. Apple says Epic is violating its App Store guidelines by using its own payment system. And also, when this story was published, it was around about the same time that Google also took their action against Fortnite as well, too. Explain why here. Apple has removed Epic Games' Battle Royale game Fortnite from the App Store after the developer on Thursday implemented its own in-app payment system that bypassed Apple's standard 30% fee. The decision marks a significant escalation in the feud between Epic and one of the world's most dominant mobile software marketplaces. It also comes at an especially fraught time for Apple as the iPhone maker navigates antitrust concerns over its operation of the App Store and the rules it imposes on certain developers. Following the removal, Epic revealed a carefully calculated series of responses, including an antitrust lawsuit seeking to establish Apple's App Store as a monopoly, and a protest video that aired on YouTube and within Fortnite itself, mocking the iPhone maker's iconic 1984 ad and calling on gaming fans to free Fortnite by supporting its fight against Apple. So I'll skip through it, of course. There's a lot of boilerplate stuff that actually is going on here. However, let's jump here to Google's actual response here because, again, Apple was the first one. Google was the second one that came in. So Google went and said, the open Android ecosystem lets developers distribute apps through multiple app stores. For game developers who choose to use the Play Store, we have consistent policies that are fair to developers and keep the store safe for users. While Fortnite remains available on Android, we can no longer make it available on Google Play because it violates our policies. However, we welcome the opportunity to continue our discussion with Epic and bring Fortnite back to Google Play. So this is actually a very long story here, and I'm going to go ahead and play the 1984 ad here in the background, Kyle. But let's kind of talk a little bit about this and kind of exactly like what's going on. So the simplified thing is that Apple sets a fee or a set rate for apps that have any sort of like pay function within the store itself. So if you buy a game or buy a game, you buy an application has the in-app purchases. When that means in-app purchases, it means that Apple is actually handling the processing of those transactions. So they are getting a 30% cut of those transactions. That goes for apps that are also purchased in the store, though, too. So when those apps are purchased in the store, then of course there's the cuts in that too. Google is the same way, but I think they actually have a lower percentage. I think they do, but I don't actually know the numbers.
Yeah, I want to say that Apple has actually been attacked before about the percent that they actually take in comparison to literally any company out
That's
there.
yes.
If you view it against, Steam, uh, even like Xbox or Google Play or PlayStation, uh, Apple has the highest rate or percentage rate that they take.
Yeah, so that is a big issue, not only just with, Epic Games bringing that up now. Of course, we'll talk about kind of their part with it and what exactly it was that they did. But Apple is currently under investigation by the FTC and several other organizations within the government for antitrust, but that's also alongside Google and Facebook and Amazon. Apple's side of it, of course, is the App Store and the policies that relate around the actual pricing of goods and how much of a cut that they make to get those goods onto their devices itself. Google's not in trouble for that part of it because luckily for us with Android phones, we can sideload applications. The only problem, of course, is that there's a risk with what you sideload is bringing in viruses, malware, anything like that. And yes, you can get a virus, you can get hacked into on your Android device. It is possible. So that's why
That
the Google
being
Play
said,
Store
though, a
exists.
lot of devices do have their own app store per their device maker. I know
Yep.
Samsung does. I think even like Huawei does now.
Yeah, and so
So,
Huawei's got its own setup now after all the tariff stuff too.
right.
Yeah, but no, you're absolutely right. Is that there are more stores available to actually download the same apps, or at least a large number of apps on Android devices that doesn't require the Google Play Store. Apple doesn't have this. You have to use the App Store, or you're looking at jailbreaking your iPhone and using one of these other app stores that are actually out there that you can put on and do other stuff with. But that's a whole other thing to get into. So that's what Apple's in trouble for with the government right now, or at least they're investigating. And Spotify is actually one of the first ones to not necessarily go the route that Epic did, which we'll talk about here in a second. But what they ended up doing was more so just complaining and talking about exactly how much they're being held back because they have to distribute through the same app store that Apple does their own products through. There's no other way to go around it. And those products compete directly with and are promoted ahead of competitors. So that means that Apple Music you're going to see first before you see Spotify. So that's just kind of where things are at. What Epic did to kind of get around this is they put in place an in-app payment system that bypasses the payment system that both Google and Apple put in. Most of the time with Apple and of course with Google stuff is usually it's going through Play Store, using your fingerprint or Face ID and making the payment through that system. What they ended up doing instead is if you go to hit, to buy V-Bucks, they would redirect you back to their website and you would actually buy it through their website. It would apply to your account and then you'd be able to go along. No problem. The biggest thing, of course, that you were using to bring people in is that they were charging 20% less, I think, is what it was.
Yeah, I want to say they were charging $7.99 or $7.99 for the V-Bucks pack that's normally $9.99. And comparable rates for all the other V-Bucks packs, but
yeah, and so so that's what the article
that was the example that I saw.
Yeah, and that's what the article actually continues on to say here is that, for instance, 1,000 V-Bucks, which is roughly equivalent to $10 in-game Fortnite currency, now costs just $7.99 if you use the Epic direct payment instead of the standard Apple payment. Yeah, so basically the way they cast it is that it would save that money, of course, for the end user is that you get the exact same amount that you're getting. It's just we're cutting out the middleman. The money goes right to us. So it's one of those things that they're just kind of trying to do a big old F you to Apple and try to at least prove the point here. So that's where things are at, of course, and for what Epic did is they violated the terms of service that they have basically digitally signed with Apple. And the same thing with Google too. So that's why they're doing what they did now. And now, of course, Epic has filed lawsuits against both of them. They obviously knew that this was going to happen because you don't just go and have a lawsuit ready to go. You don't have this 1984 video we just watched ready to go either. It was calculated and they knew exactly what they were getting into. You know, Epic has been around for a long enough time. They've made enough games. They understand the environment. They obviously have been probably, like, you know, obviously been through several lawsuits. So they understand what they were
Yeah, and
getting themselves
this
into.
was definitely obviously planned.
Yeah.
So
So you've got people, of course, on both sides of this here who say they're in the camp with Apple and Google. They're in the camp, of course, with Epic. When I don't know where I sit with it. I mean, you know, Kyle, what do you think about this? I mean, with the amount of like games, especially as an example, that I know like you got and that Dan would get as well too. You know, for an Android device, you know, for your guys' phones. You know, do you really care where you get the game from? You know, when you're spending money at, do you care if it's through the Play Store to buy stuff in the game or to get the game? You know, where do you sit on it? Because I'm right in the middle. I could honestly care less.
you know, for me, I kind of handle it the same way that I handle my computer. I like to try to get all the games I want on one platform. Now, obviously, that's not always entirely possible, and you know, you've got Epic Game Store. They give away their free games, you know, every week and whatnot. So I get games on different platforms, and I don't necessarily like it. Um, but I on my phone, you know, I'm more secluded to the Google Play Store. I've used the Samsung Store, but I don't know, even accessing it on my phone isn't necessarily like I don't know, as easy as Google Play. Like Google Play was right there on startup on the startup screen. So I was like, "Oh, well I can just log in. It's connected to my everything account." So I'm just going to use that. But I have uh gone and downloaded third party software from other resources, and for a long time I had the Amazon App Store on my phone, and you know I really don't mind it either way when it comes down to it. I could care less. I wish there was more variety. So if I wanted the option or had the option, I could go, oh well, so and so's having a sale, so I could just go buy, you know, a couple apps from them, or you know I've
True.
you know got this app through them so that I can get, you know, stuff for that app through them, you
True.
know.
Yeah. And I guess part of it too is like the article actually goes on. So Tim Sweeney, well known, of course, in the gaming world, he he of course brought up about the argument against Apple. And we were going to cover this last week's news was about how Apple will not approve Microsoft's Project X Cloud application for game streaming on iPhone or iOS devices in general. And you know, Apple's justification for that was on the gaming part of it. You know, it's like we can't review every game that's in here to actually confirm that it's going to be okay. So it's just basically just one giant big no. So the concern, of course, with that Tim Sweeney brought up in that article is more so aimed at the closed ecosystem and really defeating the purpose of crossplay. Really trying to say that like Apple is not in support of the crossplay environment and that it's going to hinder development, especially for the number of users who, you know, or the number of people who may not be gamers but are starting to kind of work that way, and the way they're doing it is through their phone. So
I feel that's a very true statement.
it's a very valid
Um,
argument. I really think,
oh
especially with
yeah,
Fortnite and how far it has spread itself out in the ecosystem and how many things you can play it on.
yeah, because I mean, when Apple says that, I mean, there's already been processes and fail safes that all those go through, you know, that before it's presented to Apple. You know, they're not gonna, especially when you know it's Xbox coming to Apple, when it's Microsoft coming to Apple and saying, "Hey, we want to put our program on your phone." You
Right.
know, I think it's more of possibly, you know, I don't see how we can make a profit off of it. So no, I think we'll pass for now.
Yeah, that's going to be a thing, and it's going to be interesting to see
Because
how this leads
there is
in.
mention, I want to say, in the
Hmm.
article of Fortnite saying something of a like statement too.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, it's.
it,
I don't know what to think of this, though. Really, I mean, each side has a business to run, and each side has to make the money to be able to survive, to be able to continue on to the next latest and greatest thing. But I wonder if we're going to end up running into a situation now where you're going to see a lot more high end apps, or at least the ones that drive usership, like use all over the board. I wonder if you're going to see a lot of other apps start to kind of ditch and go the
yeah.
way that Fortnite did. And I wonder if Spotify might end up being one of the next ones to do the same too. Because if Spotify's already got their hand in this anyway too with what they've said, then I would think honestly they're probably the next one to do it. And then I
See,
can't think
and
of any other big games to do that though right now.
I think that the statement that I was thinking of actually, now that I'm thinking about it more, is they said Fortnite doesn't sell iPhones. People that buy iPhones play Fortnite.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it's
it'd be the
that's a
same
big
thing
thing.
with xCloud. xCloud wouldn't sell iPhones. People that have iPhones play xCloud. Or
Exactly.
the streaming service or whatever.
Well, so Gabe
So
from Penny Arcade, if you read the Penny Arcade comic, he actually went out and bought a Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra, I think, just because he wanted access to the game streaming for Xbox. That was one
see,
thing.
and
It was like a big thing for
I
him, and so he went and completely changed phones just to get this one thing.
See, and I've been thinking about upgrading, but I'm thinking about upgrading simply because my charge port is starting to go out. And
See, that's
I
that's
don't
one thing
have,
too.
yeah, and I don't have, any sort of magnetic induction charger, but even then, there's certain things you have to have the charge port for. And that's kind of important. So,
Agreed. No,
but
absolutely
I was
agreed.
looking at the new Samsung, actually the Note 20 Ultra.
Oh, okay.
Um, but I don't know. I just don't know at this point. I don't see xCloud being something I continuously use on my phone. Just like we've talked previously about it. I've had it as I
Mm-hmm.
think almost as long as you, or as long as you, and I probably have used it less. I've tried it a few times, and I haven't had the greatest success with it, and I enjoy buying the classic games. The only cool thing I think would be I guess having the ability to get achievements on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
That would be really cool.
That
Just,
would be
oh,
that'd be a
well, I
big
just want
thing.
to pop on a game and see if I could get this achievement while I'm,
Mm-hmm.
waiting for, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, especially if it's one of those like quick arcadey type games that's on the
Yeah,
Xbox that you can just
exactly.
you can burn through. Like I can't imagine like like if I'm traveling somewhere, like let's say I'm in I'm in the airport or something, I could probably see getting into multiplayer and playing stuff like Halo, while waiting
Hmm.
for a flight, but not like if I'm like on public transport or something like that. That's not where I see it. I would see more of that like for your arcade type stuff. Or if you go on a vacation and you don't want to lug everything with you, you've got a second option to at least continue going. So
Very
there's something
true.
like that too. But I think that's everything on there. Comment here from PJ
Hmm.
on the Facebook chat says that Fortnite Apple parody was straight up cold. I agree. I didn't get to actually see it live, PJ. I I caught someone's reaction to it, of course, like, oh, yeah, yeah, video's starting. And you could actually see his face change because he's probably closer to my age, of course, that came out several years before I was born. But you could actually see he knew exactly what that was. And you could just tell as his face changed, like, well, they really did that. That was a thing. And it probably, I think, finally set into people's heads that, it's like, oh, this was really planned. This because you can't just whip that together so quick. But good on Epic, of course, for standing up to the man, I guess in one way or another, but we're gonna have to just see what comes of this with other applications that might follow suit. But let's move on here to our next story. And Colin, I'm gonna let you run with this one because I actually did not know this is what happened. I knew they left, but I didn't know that this is what actually did happen. So this comes to us from Polygon, and the report is Ubisoft fired Assassin's Creed Valhalla director. I didn't know they actually fired him. I thought he just left. So Kyle, tell me what happened.
Yeah, Ashraf Ishmael, who stepped down in June, was accused of having an extramarital affair with a fan.
Oh shit. Okay.
Ashraf Ishmael, former creative director of forthcoming Assassin's Creed Valhalla, who left the role in late June following social media allegations of sexual misconduct, has been formally terminated by Ubisoft. The news comes from an internal memo sent to Kotaku on Friday. In the memo, Ubisoft Montreal employees were told that an outside investigation firm had looked into the matter, and Ubisoft determined that Ashraf's employment with Ubisoft had to be terminated. The publisher told employees it would not divulge any details from the investigation. Polygon has reached out to Ubisoft representative for additional comment. Ishmael worked for Ubisoft for the past 11 years and was creative director for 2017's Assassin's Creed Origins and 2013's Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. In June, allegations emerged on Twitter that Ishmael had carried on an extramarital affair with a streamer who had met him at E3 in 2017. Ishmael stepped down June 24th. The lives of my family and my own are shattered, he said in a tweet. I am deeply sorry to everyone hurt in this. Ubisoft confirmed Ishmael's leave of absence the same day and told Gamasutra that it would begin an investigation into the matter. The streamer who made the first allegation against Ishmael said she had a consenting relationship with him, but also said he concealed his marriage from her to the point of claiming the wedding band he wore was for show so that his parents wouldn't be asking why their son wasn't married.
Wow.
Wow.
Holy crap. I mean, this comes up, of course, like the actual month that, or when he stepped down is the exact same time period that we were starting to see a lot of those allegations come up from everywhere in the gaming world, the streaming world and such too. And we're still seeing more and more stuff coming up from that across the board. Wow. I knew he had stepped down, but I didn't know that's what it was for.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, like, I thought he'd stepped down to something else. Maybe I'm thinking of a different person, but that's pretty crazy. But
Well, and I think this article just sprung up today, so I think the reach out to Polygon was actually today that they were able to get confirmation that he was formally dismissed, and it was tied to the investigation, or as a
wow.
result of the investigation is why he was dismissed.
Wow. Okay. That's just like I'm on the actual Twitter thread. I'm not going to bring it up here to share. It's in that link there, Kyle, that we were looking at. But yeah, even in these messages as well, though, too. So yeah, jeez, that's just crazy though. Like looking at some of these things here. But yeah, she's got her whole this streamer here actually has her whole story. Um, yeah, yeah, and it looks like he actually tried to. Looks like he actually tried to retract a lot of stuff with her, or at least get her to hide a lot of this though too. So, I mean, he
That's
knew it
kind of
was in
sad.
deep. Yeah, like, geez. Yeah, this is.
And really, it's super sad because that's bad on him for preying on a person so much. So, because I don't want to call her ignorant or anything, but that it is an innocent thing to, and, depending on some people's cultures or, the religious beliefs, people do, wear wedding bands occasionally to just, say, hey, guys, I am married, and, they're not. Or, um, and that really for him to do that, I think he was preying on her.
I think so too. I think that's really where a lot of this came from, and that's if you actually look at a lot of this stuff, that's where a lot of these things have been coming from, is that they've been getting preyed on because of their status in the industry. And Ubisoft is not one to look the other way from, especially with Assassin's Creed being as big of a series as it is. Same goes with
Right.
all the popular streamers. I mean, we saw so many different ones across the board from all the different sides of games themselves that have been getting taken down. So you're most likely right that he used his influence and power from the part of the industry that he was in to do that. Hi, doggo. So that's a fucking shame. But that's honestly, it's better that it's been exposed now and that he's actually out of view on it, which is good.
Yeah.
Hopefully allows everybody to heal and hopefully gets him in the right spot. Let's move on here to the next one, and I'm kind of rolling my eyes at it because I feel like we've talked about this one before. This gun comes to us from PC Gamer. Bethesda confirms that Fallout 76 is still getting official mod support. Is still getting.
Yeah, it's still getting.
Yeah. The team behind Fallout 76 has reaffirmed their commitment to official mod support in a panel during QuakeCon's broadcast to the Netherlands. When asked about the possibility of mod support in a Q&A, Fallout 76 project lead Jeff Gardiner said we are still can't speak right now. We are definitely still working on mod support. It's coming. Gardiner notes that adding mod support to Fallout 76 is a lot of work because the client server architecture at the core of the game, as opposed to, or is a lot of work because of the client. Okay. All right. So it's basically a lot of work. I am mixing up my words here. I haven't even had a beer yet tonight, Kyle, and I'm still mixing up. I'm just drunk on exhaustion. So anyway, Bethesda has always been clear that official mod support for Fallout 76 was planned, but wouldn't be available till long after launch. We call it the heavy lift, says Gardiner in the stream, meaning we've had to put a lot of resources into that. It's not just drag and drop from the previous games because of the way our client server architecture works, but it's coming. We're working on it. Just stay tuned. Mods in Fallout 76 have technically been around for a while since the beta period, and Bethesda has said that they track the most popular ones to see what people like. There are a load of them at places like Nexus Mods to download, use, and share on your private server with others. Official support, however, would bring mods to places like Steam Workshop rather than third-party sites.
And then they could charge for it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point of it, is that they can seriously, that they can actually make money off of it potentially. I mean, I remember when Fallout 4 came out and it was on the Xbox, that they said, one of the big splash screens there on the E3 stage screen said, like mod support on console. Like, I thought that was like one of the big like selling points for it, is that it.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Well, that was weird. My screen just like flashed out. I thought my whole computer died. I was like, oh, there goes the stream.
Oh.
That was weird. Anyway, yeah, so it's funny that it's taken this long to do it, but you look at what's happened with like with Overwatch as an example, and they had to overhaul the engine in that to change some of the mechanics around for, like, the spectator mode in there, and going back and rewatching broadcasts and their own, like, mods where you can create your own game modes. So it's not necessarily a surprise because a lot of that stuff has to be on the server side. Whereas, of course, Fallout 3, New Vegas, 4, and so on have all been local installs that you can put mods on and go crazy to your heart's content. But yeah, I think this is a combination of probably centralizing all the best mods, duplicating the ones that they can't centralize, and then charging for some of them. I don't know what, but charging for some. I wouldn't be surprised to see them at a lower cost, but I'm sure they're going to be at least a little expensive.
Which is really sad because it makes the game more difficult for just the average person to mod it. And I remember when I was, a kid, and you probably experienced it as well, modding games and stuff. I specifically remember Morrowind, actually, that I modded the crap out of, and it was a fun learning experience, being able to do it. Not only getting to play the game afterwards, with all the mods, but actually figuring out where to put the files and, unpacking stuff in the right places. It was kind of a fun experience to learn how to do everything.
Right.
And I don't know. I get that, they're trying to make it more accessible to people and whatnot, but I don't know. I feel like half of the original concept of mods was, the fun of learning how to get them to work. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, that's especially true as, computer architecture changes from, person to person
right?
anyway, that your computer is not going to run the same way as the other. And so that tutorial that they give you may not be the right one for you. You may have to go an extra step or two. But I do actually
See,
find joy in that as well. I mean, like we talked
See, and I
about.
don't think we'll see a good like modding community in like a console environment until we get something like Dreams brought in on a hardware level uh to be
Hmm.
able to edit our own software.
That's why I'm thinking, like, with the power that we have actually behind the Series X and the PlayStation 5, more likely than not, we'll probably see more of that because it literally is just it's more of a computer now than it has been in the last couple of console generations. So I
Exactly.
think it's possible we could see that. We may even see a new, like you said, even a new Dreams that allows for more of that, especially on the PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's that from Bethesda. Way to go. We'll keep an eye out for more of those mods. Let's move on here to our next story.
For
This one,
anyone who actually still cares about Fallout 76.
yeah, no kidding. For anybody out there who's still
It
playing
is
Fallout 76,
free.
for you four people who are playing Fallout 76, it's coming. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on here to this story here from the official PlayStation blog. Kyle, can you tell us about Last of Us Part 2? Apparently added some new updates. What's going on with this one?
Some really cool stuff actually. So they've actually added some new difficulty. I'll go ahead and read the full blog article from Matthew Gallant. He says, "Hello everyone. We hope you've been well, staying safe, and enjoying Last of Us Part Two. We've loved seeing all of you share your experience playing the game, whether it's by posting your thoughts and impressions on social media, sending us your fan art, or capturing your favorite moments in masterfully choreographed gameplay videos. However, that's not all that's been keeping us busy. We've been preparing a new update for The Last of Us Part 2, which introduces new features, gameplay modes, trophies, and more, including the much requested return of grounded difficulty. Best of all, it arrives August 13th, so let's get straight into what Grounded update includes. So actually launched yesterday, right? Um, so for Veteran Last of Us, Grounded difficulty represents the ultimate test of skill. The difficulty raises the stakes by not only making enemies deadlier and ammo upgrade and crafting materials incredibly scarce, but also removing valuable tools for survival, such as disabling listen mode, deactivating elements of the HUD, and more. Beginners with the update, Grounded will become one of the base difficulty options available when starting the story, so you won't need to have beaten the game once already to access it. As an additional layer of challenge, we're also introducing a brand new permadeath mode with the custom mode enabled. So, congratulations, you can live all the tremendous length of this game in one horrible life. Um, you must complete the entire game without dying or start over from the beginning. However, if taking on the whole game is too daunting, you can choose to enable permadeath mode with checkpoints on a one per chapter per act basis. In other words, if you die at the end of day one, you'll have to play the entire day over again.
Ha ha, that's awesome.
You'll also be rewarded for your efforts. The Grounded update introduces two new trophies, one for completing the game with any permadeath mode enabled, and another for beating it on grounded difficulty. Don't worry though, neither of these trophies will be required in order to earn the platinum.
That's good. Actually, you know what? Before you carry on with the rest of it, I like that. That's great that they've at least,
That
separated that
actually
out.
kind of makes me wonder if they're just adding like two additional platinum trophies.
They they
Because
they could be very that could be possible because those are pretty difficult ones to get. So maybe you have a.
exactly what I was thinking, especially with the
Mhm.
permadeath mode. I mean, there's people
Yeah.
that have done it, and it's not impossible. It's not even.
Hmm.
So, but I think it's worthy of the platinum if they're going to just add another trophy on there.
That's true. So I do any other PlayStation games, at least those that use the trophy achievement system, do any of them have more than just one platinum trophy? Because isn't platinum for completely beating the game? Like or getting every
Yeah,
achievement?
yes.
Okay. So do any other games, at least off the top of your head, have more than one platinum trophy?
Not off the top of my head. Not that I can think of anyway.
All right, nothing to look up now. I was just wondering if off the top of your head. Anyway, yeah, let's carry on
Yeah.
and hear about the rest of this.
Yeah, so let me scroll back up to it because I had scrolled down a little ways. Um, have you ever wondered what The Last of Us Part 2 would look like as a cel-shaded adventure? Or if it was made in the retro 8-bit era? How about if it were black and white noir thriller or sepia tone classic? With this week's update, we're adding nearly 30 new graphic rendering modes as well as several new audio modifiers that allow you to change the look and feel of the game. Now that is super cool.
That is neat.
Especially the 8-bit. That's almost like uh, Doom graphics there.
Yeah, I was actually kind of thinking that because it did come up in the video looking about the exact same way.
Yeah, and the cell shaded. I'm kind of getting like a 13 vibe off of that.
Ooh,
And that
yeah,
one's
huh?
supposed to be launching soon.
That
But
is
yeah,
cool. That is a
yeah,
neat look.
very very much so. I love the cell shaded graphics though.
Yeah.
Uh, we're also debuting new unlockable gameplay modifiers like one shot or touch of death that enable one hit kills or infinite ammo, infinite crafting, or infinite listen mode range to add new twists to gameplay. Uh, then it kind of goes through the list: mirror world, mirror on death, slow motion, bullet speed mode, infinite ammo, infinite crafting, infinite melee duration, infinite listen mode range, one shot, touch of death, 8-bit audio, 4-bit audio, helium audio, and xenon audio.
So I'm guessing the helium audio is probably more like everybody's squeaky, and the xenon is probably more like everybody's got a deep voice.
Probably. Like I would imagine helium would be like everyone sounds like chipmunks, and xenon, everyone sounds like they belong in Doom.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so that's cool.
Alongside these new modes, we're excited to introduce a number of frequently requested improvements to the game, including the option to disable listen mode, adjust film grain levels, additional display options, improvements to accessibility features, and more. For our friends in the speedrunning community, we're also adding the ability to see the playtime up in the seconds in the save menu, making it easier to track and verify your runs.
Sweet.
Here's a quick overview of the features that will be added to the Grounded update. Save new display time up to the second, film grain adjustment, display listen mode option, motion sensor function aiming mode, which is really cool because that's, like with your Switch, you get the motion sensor
Uh
aiming.
huh. That is neat.
Arc throwing HUD display option, aiming acceleration scale option, aim ramp power scale option, accessibility improvements to ground zero encounter, collection or collectible tracking, enhanced listen mode for collectibles, and rope gameplay. So quite a bit to this update.
Yeah, there's a lot. I actually expected a lot of like this is quite a bit that's changing for the game itself too. I mean, I know it doesn't change the game, but like the way the story progresses in that anyway, but these are enough that I'm surprised that this didn't come out with like DLC because there's so much happening here under the hood that I wouldn't know what else to call it.
And a lot of people would charge for DLC for that.
Agreed.
Just
Yeah.
per cheat, or per audio pack, per video pack, or per bundle pack, of any of the variety. So that's really cool. And I wonder if maybe some of it's tied to the development and whatnot, but
Hmm.
I don't think it should be. I know maybe some people are thinking that, and I don't think it should be. I think maybe this is just them saying, "Hey guys, we just want you to have this.
Mm-hmm.
It
No, I
has
think that's
nothing to
right.
do with anything, you know?
Yeah, that's cool with me. I mean, if that's the way the developer goes, and I like those little tweaks to it, it's really neat to actually see. I'm just grateful though, of course, that it even said in the article, and you did pass it a little bit there, is that the extras that you could have, where you can have like the infinite melee, the infinite crafting, all that, you do not get until you beat the game. So basically, they're saying you need to play it in its pure,
Oh,
unadulterated
yeah, I did
experience
script that.
without, yeah, and you have to play it like this. It looks like the visual stuff isn't going to apply that way, but what will happen then at least is that you have to go through the game. You could do the visual stuff, no problem, but everything else can't be done until you beat this game. That's it. Which is cool. That's actually great because then you don't have anybody spoiling anything just to get through the game just because okay, now they've got infinite crafting or whatever, whatever else to help them along.
Oh
You know?
man, this just makes me want to pick up the game more so I can play Last of Us 2 DOS mode.
There you go. Yeah, I'd like to actually see how. I'm actually very curious to see if Preston is going to try to play the grounded mode or even the permadeath mode. I'm gonna have to ask him about that one when we record, because that's interesting though.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, because I wonder if he would, because he likes a challenge. So I bet you might go back around to do that.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and move on here to our next story, and of course, being a stream and being a streamer myself, this is always really neat to see with what happens here. This story comes to us from The Verge. Sorry, I had to get back to the right spot here. Over 500,000 people watched Shroud's return to Twitch. Michael Shroud, I still can't pronounce his name. Grzesic, I think it was it. One of the most popular live streamers in the world returned to Twitch on Wednesday following Microsoft's decision to shut down the competing Mixer platform, attracting nearly 500,000 active viewers in his comeback stream before it even officially started. Most of those viewers showed up only to find a starting soon message before Shroud turned his camera on at roughly 2:50 p.m. Eastern Time. Twitch users continued to pour in, and Shroud surpassed 500,000 active viewers just a few minutes past the hour. Shroud said his lateness was due to technical difficulties, common culprit he cites when showing up late to scheduled streams that has become a bit of an inside joke among his legion of fans. But he did say the end result of apparent bitrate and audio issues was that his stream might remain capped at 720p. Despite the early issues, a freshly goateed Shroud fired up Riot's new tactical shooter Valorant, where he began maintaining between about 400,000 and 475,000 active viewers. Shroud is currently responsible for more than 80% of the viewership of Valorant, which is now sitting at the top of the most viewed Twitch charts. So, just to summarize kind of like what happened there with Shroud, just like the article said, is that he went to Mixer. Of course, as we've all talked about, Mixer shut down at the end of this last month. And when it was announced that, of course, it was shutting down, both Ninja and Shroud had huge contracts with them. You're talking multi-million-dollar contracts. I think Shroud's was rumored to be around 10 million and Ninja's was around about 20 million. So they were able to break their contracts. Of course they had to, because they didn't have a platform to be on. And Microsoft basically paid out their contracts because like, well, we can't support you anymore. Here's your money.
Yeah,
So,
break their contracts. They were released.
basically, yeah, that's basically what it is. And so what ended up happening is that with the changeover, Shroud basically took himself, or gave himself a lengthy vacation. He took off, I think he said in the stream was about 45 days. And so when he took off for the 45 days, he didn't stream. He wasn't supposedly playing games or anything else. He was just taking his time because in the world of being a full-time streamer, there's usually never an opportunity to take a break. So he got some well-deserved time off and came right back. The bonus, of course, is that, compared to Dr. Disrespect, Shroud is not under any sort of weird issues, embargoes, problems, anything like that. And one of the stories we were going to talk about last week was Dr. Disrespect coming back, but he's, of course, streaming on YouTube now, and he had about the same level of participation when he started his stream up again, though, too. Handled it a little differently, of course, though, anyway. But Shroud is back. For any of those who actually like to, who actually watch Shroud, I'm one of those as well. But he shared this out on Twitter when he was done with his stream, and his tweet goes on to say, "I pictured an epic return, not quite like this, though." And so for those of you who don't use Twitch, this is actually kind of the platform information that you can actually see about your stream stats, of course, for each given day. He racked up 16,524 subscriptions in the course of the 8 hours that he was streaming. And that doesn't count donations or bits or anything like that. So if we do the math here, okay, and I always love looking at this, like, especially with my kids, because my kids, like, we're talking about, there was a Twitch streamer that I watched this morning, named John Bams, and he's a Minecraft streamer. He's one I like to put on in the background just because I like his banter and his attitude. He's just a funny guy to listen to. And he had quite a few, so I did the math on him. So a tier 1 stream or tier 1 subscription is $4.99. Let's just say that 16,524 is all tier 1s. So Twitch takes a cut of that revenue. So if we take $4.99 and divide it by 2, that's $2.495. Okay, that is multiplied now by the 16,524. This guy raked in $41,000 before any sort of taxes need to be pulled.
Jesus,
Kyle, we are in the wrong business. Although technically we are streaming right now, but yeah, he had an average viewer count of 222,000, max viewer count of 516,000, 7.4 million live views, and 2.9 million unique views, which means 2.9 million people that had never watched his streams before popped in. I mean, you're talking about like the population of Los Angeles that just hopped in just to see what his stream was doing. But I wanted to highlight that one a little bit there to kind of at least like show the metrics that he shared out. None of this was leaked. This was him sharing this out, And
I've never actually watched either of the guys, stream or Shroud or Ninja. Are they like particularly good or?
So Ninja got really good at Fortnite before he started streaming, and then he started streaming his successes and just got really popular based off of that. Shroud was a member of Cloud9, who is a professional esports team, and they play in a bunch of different games. They range from Counter-Strike to League of Legends to Dota.
Okay.
I think they've got a Hearthstone team. They're kind of all over the place. I think they even have they have an Overwatch team. But Shroud was on the Counter-Strike team because of his wicked good aim. And ever since then, and since he got away from Cloud9, he's been doing his own thing. He's still one of the top shooters in any of the competitive esports games that are out there right now. I mean, like one of the top. And so, like, I'll give you an example, of course, of how big this is, especially for him, is that back before he left Twitch to go to Mixer, he was riding on one of those rented, those rentable electric scooters that you can find like in a lot of the big towns. So he was riding on one of those, and he ended up biffing it hard. And when the pictures finally came out of how bad he hurt his arm, everybody lost their mind because the picture was mirrored, and so what it looked like his right arm. And the problem is, of course, he's right-handed for his mouse, which means that this guy with his steady aim and the amount of skill that he has basically appeared to a lot of the people who saw the picture to be done, because the level of damage in that, I don't know if he actually had to have surgery. I don't know exactly what else had to be done, but I think the pictures made it look bad enough. And I want to get through the rest of the news, of course. I'm not going to go look for the pictures. I'll let you guys look, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. But it made a lot of people think that his career was done. Streaming, competitive gaming, all of that.
Okay.
But luckily, of course, it flipped around, where it turned out that he actually, it was actually the wrong side, and he was actually able to play no problem. So, it's one of those things. It's like, I'm trying to think of other ways to, kind of think about this, and that too. Like, remember in Doctor Strange when, he messed up his hands from the car accident, and he had the surgery and he couldn't play piano or do the surgeries anymore. Imagine that level of like, kind of like watching Shroud, and a lot of people are like, oh God, is this it? So he's been a professional for some time. He's been really good, and he's still really good at what he does. Whereas compared to Ninja, he got good at the game. He started streaming a lot of it, and that's where he got really popular at. So he wasn't a member of any esports team or anything like that. He just worked his way up through the ranks to just get really good at the game. And then he became this huge media mogul, I suppose, if you want to call him that, or some sort of, entertainer mogul. I don't know what to call him. But yeah, he got to be really big in what he did, and he's definitely full of his arrogance and thinks he knows better than a lot of people. We've talked about his comments several times.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. So I don't really like Ninja. I think he's just way too over the top for me, and I know I say that, of course, as a fan of Doctor Disrespect. But no, there's something just about Ninja that just puts me off, and so he's not one that I watched. I'm glad that none of my kids play Fortnite, so he's not one that I have to go and buy, Ninja merch for, or try to get them set up to play these games. I've got kids playing like actual good games like Apex Legends and Overwatch. But we're not going to get into that one right now. So let's move on here actually to this next story, and I want to preface this one by saying that this article here is actually an opinion article, and so of course the thoughts here are going to be a little bit skewed, of course, as we're talking about this one here. But this one comes to us from Forbes. Almost said Forge. This one comes to us from Forbes. And this is an opinion article from Paul Tassi, senior contributor at Forbes, saying PS4's Ghost of Tsushima is the highest rated game of the entire generation. So instead of reading exactly everything that he said here verbatim, we'll kind of go into a little bit of his methodology here from his article and actually kind of talk about what exactly he was saying to come to that point. A few weeks ago, after Ghost of Tsushima came out, he said he was racking up thousands of reviews and had an impressive 9.3 out of 10 for a user score, higher than its critic Metascore of an 83, and actually a bit lower of the grand catalog of PS4 releases. So he started looking and averaging out about the at the number of reviews that were actually coming in and where those stacked up. And apparently the game is over 15,000 reviews, and it's still sitting at a 9.3 out of 10 on the user review side, not the critic review side. So where he looked at how this stacked up, he was, and where he got his idea from here is overall, he said that he's going to declare it as the highest rated game of this current console generation. And he does, of course, explain there's a few caveats. So first, he said it's the console generation, talking about Xbox One, PS4, and the Switch, which he makes mention, of course, The Witcher 3 does have a 9.4 out of 10 on the PC. But, of course, we're talking about specifically console generation. Second, he goes into talking about the Xbox One version of Superliminal, which has a 9.5, although the actual ratings on that one only totals 684 ratings. And it goes down to break down the PS4 version and the Switch version. And it also talked about the PC version, which those scores were either significantly less or just a little bit higher than that one. But the thing, of course, though, is that Ghost of Tsushima is a single platform release. It's not out on PC. It's not out on Xbox or Switch or anywhere else. It's on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 4 Pro. That is it. But because it hasn't changed anything and that it's got 15,000 reviews behind it, his methodology is basically coming out and saying that it is the highest rated game for this console generation. The fact that user reviews have not actually tipped the scale one way or another. And I actually do kind of like that methodology when it comes to trying to figure out what's top of the top. Because if we went to Metacritic right now, like Kyle, when was the last time you actually went to Metacritic to look at games?
Oh, man. To actually look at games, probably 3 or 4 months ago. It was before the debate of, the user scores being, having too much power of, weighing in on the game, and before they took away the ability, before all that debate became too hot topic, is the last time I actually used Metacritic.
Okay, well, let's take a look at this one as an example here of like Last of Us Part 2, which is the top one here according to the top games list by Metascore. Which has a Metascore rating of 94. It has 139,894 ratings with a user score of 5.6. So, and if you actually, like a little bit down here on the user review numbers, positives are 34,352 and negatives are 33,930. So very, very close to each other in the positives and negatives.
Well, and I think one of the things that's so remarkable is, the fact that so many games, even good games, have been getting review bombed, and Ghost of Tsushima really didn't,
True. Very, very true. So, like, yeah, at the very top of the list, of course, like you said in the article, was Superliminal, and this is on the Switch, has a user score of 9.7, but it's only 252 ratings. Whereas, of course, in the rest of it anyway, is Ghost of Tsushima, Xenoblade Chronicles. Wait, okay, hold on a minute. I gotta look at this. SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated for the PlayStation 4 has a user score of 9.0 with almost 2,000 ratings. What?
I think that also speaks to the generation of when people started actually using Metacritic too. Um, you think about it, Metacritic got really big about the time SpongeBob originally launched, or people would have started researching this game too when it started coming back up and they announced it. Um, and a lot of re-hype there. So I think that the numbers are going to be skewed on that one.
Yeah, so like as a good example here of another one to kind of look at that has about the same number of user ratings is Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Has a Metascore of 97 based on 109 reviews, but has a user score of 8.6. But the number of ratings on here is 15,422. So at least the rating numbers are about there. And, I don't know if we can actually look at like trends or anything like that either, but it's kind of neat to actually see, what his methodology was and actually look at some of these other games that are well known. I mean, it's not multi-platform, but, Breath of the Wild obviously isn't. But it's just interesting, of course, at least to see that, from the highest scoring games of the last decade.
And honestly, playing both of those games, I could see maybe how, in some ways, Ghost of Tsushima could hit the Metacritic score higher, because the audience that's going to actually be accessing the Metacritic score, and utilizing that, yeah, I just feel like that audience, it's going to give birth to a wider audience, because it's going to be an adult audience, and an adult audience is going to want more of a casual game, I guess. Like Legend of Zelda is casual, but there are times that you have to sit down and play it for like hours and hours to get one thing done.
Right.
At least that's how I felt anyway, playing it. Whereas Ghost, I can hop on, fast travel to a village, run 90 meters, go pray at a shrine, and save a village in 15 minutes, and I still feel like I've accomplished something.
Which is good. That's yeah. No, I agree.
I don't know. I just feel like it has to do with the pacing of the game and the type of audience, like I said, that would be utilizing Metacritic.
True. Very true. So it's definitely a neat study into that, though. I think what you would actually really need to do more of, though, to actually really solidify that could be considered the top game of this console generation, is you need to really like extrapolate most of that data out and start to actually run some more comparisons. Oh, whoa. Hi, Charlie. Hello. Bye, Charlie. New dog just jumped on me. So I think you need to actually extrapolate out a lot of that. And then if there was a way to actually trend it to show like, okay, when did these scores actually like, the averages start to change based on when, people were rating it higher or lower than than it is at right now. And then you can start to set that standard, and then you could start to do the weighted average of how many reviews have actually been done versus what the actual score is. And start to work out a lot of that. So I think where he's at is probably on the right track. We just need more analysis of it, though, across the board to see if that's truly the case. But I would think, at least with like the base level information, I think he's on to it. And I could have, if the score, at least when it first went up versus, where it's at now, I honestly think, that's at least a pretty good spot, but it requires more review. So it's a good start.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to our next story here, and it's funny because it's more Ghost of Tsushima stuff. Kyle, what's going on here? It says Ghost of Tsushima gets a post-launch digital deluxe edition upgrade. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Ghost of Tsushima players who purchase the standard edition are now able to upgrade to the digital deluxe edition for $10.99, which includes access to a 45-minute behind-the-scenes documentary on the game and in-game goodies. These items were previously available to those who purchased either the digital deluxe edition, special edition, and collector's edition, but now those who love the game or wish to learn more about its making can upgrade and receive many of the bonuses these others had. The other items included in the digital are included a digital mini art book, one technique point, a charm of Hachiman's favor, and the Hero Tsushima skin set. Uh, PlayStation released a new trailer for the director's commentary, which featured Ghost of Tsushima's creative director Nate Fox, Sony Interactive Entertainment's Shuei Yoshida, and Dr. Kazuto Hongo, a professor at the Historiographical Institute at the University of Tokyo, discussing the history behind Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima was released in July 2020, and in the review, we said Ghost of Tsushima, Jesus, I'm tripping over my own words, is an enormous and densely packed samurai adventure. Obviously, not our review, this is IGN's, that often left me completely awestruck with both its visual spectacle and excellent combat by steadily introducing new abilities instead of stat upgrades. Its swordplay manages to stay challenging, rewarding, and fun throughout the entire 40 to 50 hours that it took me to beat the campaign. So kind of cool stuff, some stuff for some people
I
that might
agree.
have missed out.
Yeah, I truly agree, and I think I can't say I've seen or at least can immediately recall any game that has taken the deluxe edition and say, if you want this, if you bought the standard, here's how you can get it for at least a little bit more, even after having the standard, that you don't have to go out and buy a second copy of the game to get that, that deluxe edition, which
I
most
don't know.
people
I
would.
seem to think that I think there have been other games that have released skin packs later on that you could like purchase later on. That were skins that
Right.
were exclusive to stores, but it was always much later on. It
Right.
was never like oh, this released last month and we have this really cool commentary that we think everyone should have access to. So
No,
if you want to pick
absolutely.
it up,
Yeah,
I think
you're
that's really
right.
cool.
I think you're absolutely right. Is that's definitely a big thing with them to be able to at least release some of that. Otherwise, what's going to end up happening is that someone's going to go and with that like mini documentary series they're talking about the development of the game, they're going to rip it and put it up on YouTube or a torrent site or something, so people don't have to pay for it. But I think with how popular Ghost of Tsushima is, I think you're going to see actually a lot of people going to get the digital deluxe edition anyway, at least until we start seeing DLC or we see the enhancements going into the PlayStation 5 version or any of that. So this is at least a good next step to kind of help, I guess, make a little bit at least of additional revenue, and at the same time give some people an option to do something without having to buy a full copy of the game, of the deluxe game.
Yeah.
So
And I feel like giving those people that option to, get the $10 upgrade, it really does, you know, avoid that, person going out there and trying to find the video to torrent and then potentially getting in trouble for, downloading illegally and then, possessing something that doesn't even belong to them digitally. So it's really cool that they're doing this. So
yeah, I truly agree. I think that's good of them to do this. So
yeah.
let's go ahead and move on here to our second to last story for tonight. And this one, of course, is actually a very sad one. This one comes to us from Games Radar. Halo Infinite delay pushes the former Xbox Series X launch title back to 2021. 343 Industries needs more time to perfect the game. A Halo Infinite delay has been officially announced, meaning the game won't be out in time for the Xbox Series X launch over the holidays and will instead arrive in 2021. Developer 343 Industries made the announcement in a post to its official Twitter account explaining that it made the decision to ensure the team has adequate time to deliver a Halo game experience that meets our vision. The decision to shift our release is the result of multiple factors that have contributed to development challenges, including the ongoing COVID-related impacts affecting us all this year. I want to acknowledge the hard work from our team at 343 Industries who have remained committed to making a great game and finding solutions to development challenges. However, it is not sustainable for the well-being of our team or the overall success of the game to ship it this holiday. That message there came from Halo Infinite Studio head Chris Lee. He added that, of course, in the update. So they delayed it, but we have absolutely no update as to what that means for 2021. But I think what we can really take away from this, and Kyle, I'm sure you agree with me, is that because of how much COVID-19 has weighed on the industry this year, and the fact that a lot of these game studios are in your bigger cities that have a lot of these shelter-in-place lockdown type mandates that have been going on, access to the tools and technology is not really as there as it could be. They can still get in there and they can still do the development, but they can't really do it to their fullest potential because they're not allowed back in their building due to current health orders in their state. So
Right.
I think where you can agree with me on this one is that Microsoft really understands the burden, and the Xbox team and 343 Industries, they really understand the burden of what is going on in the world right now and fully realize that they need to take care of their employees. And so they're not instituting crunch, which is great. We hear it from across the board. I think CD Projekt Red is actually still pushing through a lot of it right now because of Cyberpunk 2077, which we have yet to hear if there's going to be a delay there. But it sounds like with the Night City Wire that happened last week. Yeah. With the Night City Wire that happened last week, kind of talking about, the roles and factions and stuff, it didn't really seem to, or not factions, but the roles, but it didn't seem to really allude to anything that said, like, there's going to be a delay of any kind. So
Right.
it's good on 343 and Xbox and Microsoft, since they're all in the same family anyway, to allow for that development time to continue on and to allow for that reprieve so they're not causing any sort of mental anguish or harm to their employees. And hopefully what we end up getting, especially like we saw with the delay of Last of Us Part 2 and of course the shift of Ghost of Tsushima's release, though, that we do end up with a game that ends up meeting or beating our expectations because they had the time and the mental capacity to truly focus and make something great.
Well, and I
That's my
wonder
hope.
if part of this maybe has to do with the backlash from their showing of gameplay footage during the Microsoft event.
I could actually
I
see
mean
that.
it gave us Craig, but to the same effect. I mean, everyone's complained about the graphics, and I know I talked about the graphics, and when we haven't actually gotten to talk about this since we've had the technical issues and whatnot, but they've even gone to say that there wasn't any ray tracing or anything, and people have shown the video with ray tracing, and it looks 1,000 times better.
Nice.
And now there are still other graphical tweaks that need to be made, but I mean, this is also a game that they've talked about, piecing out. They've talked about doing tons of different things. They've talked about the possibility that this could be a Halo to last the entire console generation. And then I've also
Interesting.
heard that we could also maybe just see the multiplayer for free this holiday, which would be cool, and then the campaign come later on in 2020.
You don't think we're going
And
to
I would be
see,
fine with that.
like based on everything that's come out so far, you don't think we're going to be seeing something like a oh god, what do I want to say here? We're not going to be seeing anything like a Halo battle royale or anything.
No, but I think we're gonna see the possibility of the Halo multiplayer coming out like a battle royale, not as in the battle royale format. Just you're free to play with the possibility of earnable or purchasable cosmetic upgrades.
Right, and that would
And then
actually be really
you can
cool.
tie your campaign to it. when the campaign comes out, that game will be available. You purchase it, it ties to your multiplayer, and stuff that you earn off the campaign can maybe even tie into the multiplayer.
See, and
That'd
that
be
it's
the really cool.
that would be really cool. I 100% agree with that one here. So, like, what I could probably see more so is that because it seems like they're really pushing for more of like the the open world with with Halo Infinite here too, and that's
Hmm.
probably like where the moniker of Infinite comes from anyway. Um, I think what we're probably going to see more of is like these old school like big team battle type multiplayer events, or at least multiplayer maps, but they're going to be on a scale that's going to be similar to the same size as battle royale maps. That you're still doing things like team deathmatch or capture the flag or um, what I can't remember the rest of the game modes. SWAT is a good one for me as an example because that was one of my
Hmm.
favorite ones in Halo 3. Uh,
Oh yeah.
but I could probably see that though instead, that it's not going to go full battle royale, but it's at least going to still give some sort of familiarity to it though, with just like a larger map.
Well,
So
you think about
we'll
it
have to
too,
see.
the way that this format that they're trying to push with the Game Pass, and the ability to go over to a friend's house and you can hop on multiplayer. All they have to do is hand you a controller, you connect it to your cell phone, and you're in the game with them.
True. That's
They're
very
they're
true.
really trying to push that. So Halo Infinite being free multiplayer, you go over to a friend's to hang out. You can all just pop out your cell phones, and as long as you've got enough Xbox, PlayStation, or any wireless controller, pretty much at this point. I've got a Razer Jungle Cat that works.
Mm-hmm.
What's the other Razer? The not is it the not? No, it's not the Naga.
No, that's a
The one that
mouse.
expands out.
I know what you're talking about,
Uh,
but I can't remember the
yeah,
immediate name of it. But I know exactly what you're talking about.
but yeah, I mean, they're really really pushing. I mean, they even said, it works with a PlayStation controller,
Right, and that's
and that's coming from the mouths of Microsoft.
And I
So
think what's happening is that you're seeing with a lot of these battle royale games that have made their success to be free to play, with the microtransactions in them, Fortnite, Warzone, Apex Legends, and several others, of course, that there is a way to monetize free. Is give them the base part there and then build your player base so that way at that point in time when they get tired of the free stuff, anything that they could pay for to not necessarily enhance their experience but to make things different for them, then you've already got the player base there. You've already got them yearning for more, and that's what you do to bring them in. So
yeah,
it's
and see, I've always viewed it as, with games that include multiplayer, people play the story and they play the multiplayer to enrich the story and live out more of the game. People that play the multiplayer first, they play the multiplayer to enjoy the game with their friends, and they have the story to pad out the game and make sense of what's actually going on in the multiplayer, I guess. You
very
know?
true, very true. I mean, I will tell you for a
But
fact I can't translate playing multiplayer in Warzone to then going over to Modern Warfare multiplayer. I tell you for a fact I cannot translate
very
from
true.
yeah, completely
Very
separate.
true. But I mean, the gameplay aspect is what it's really about, and them giving out the multiplayer, if they actually do go through with it and do it that way, if that uh, guess that's floating out in the ether out there is the best one, and that's the one that they draw off of, um, then that would be really cool.
That would
And
be.
I think it would bring a lot of players to play the single player campaign.
Yeah. No, I think it really would. I think that's probably going to end up being what you see next then from Microsoft with this, and maybe that's something that they have to adapt to. But I noticed though, I had the video playing there in the background, Kyle, of the 8-minute gameplay trailer. And if you actually look around, of course, as Master Chief is like driving around on the Warthog there at the very beginning, you can see a lot of graphical things popping in and out, like stuff that you wouldn't expect to see, in like an actual like Golden Master type release, but definitely in like a beta or an alpha type setup of textures that are not rendering properly or
Yeah, but
are
even
just
at
not
the
there.
end of the video, when you see like the hard light shaders come through and whatnot, you can see where the ray tracing is supposed to be, and it's missing. So I mean,
Okay.
obviously, the graphics are getting there, and I wasn't worried about it because I mean I still play 8-bit games and I love them, but I knew
Right.
that it was like I think I even mentioned that in the podcast when we talked about the actual Xbox box event, is that what we're looking at is probably alpha footage.
More
So,
likely than not, I would agree with you there, 100%.
there's a lot more that's going to happen before we actually see the game, and I don't think people need to worry as much as they are.
Yeah, I don't really think so either. I think we're going to get some extra time put into this. It's going to end up looking
Yeah,
better.
and especially with
And
this extra padding of time, yeah, we're gonna get an excellent title.
I really do think that's going to be the case, and I'm looking forward to being able to play Infinite. It's a shame not to be able to do it on launch day,
Hmm.
but I don't care. I'm getting a Series X day one. I'm plugging that shit in. I'm taking like a week off of work so I can just play every game at 4K that I have just to make them all work and just to see how well it goes. But that's just me because I'm weird like that. All right, let's go ahead and finish off here with another Xbox story. And this is the last one. And I'm going to consider this our nice, we go up a big hill and then we kind of come down with our news. Then we're going up a big hill again to finish off. We're gonna do this here. This is actually a big one for sure because we didn't have a release date, but we might have just gotten one. This one comes to us from IGN. Xbox Series X and S could launch on November 6th, according to controller leaks. A series of alleged controller leaks may have revealed a November 6th release date for Xbox Series X and the much rumored Xbox Series S. A summary of an unboxing of the alleged Xbox Series S controller was posted to Reset Era by user Jaw Muncher, who claims to have acquired a picture from the owner of the controller's online registered warranty page. The Microsoft limited warranty for the Xbox Series S controller appears to end on November 5th, 2021. Microsoft's limited warranty covers a year for purchase, which suggests a November 5th or November 6th, 2020 release date. Further to that, for The Verge's Tom Warren, based on this picture above, also managed to source an alleged picture of the Xbox Series S controller packaging, which featured a sticker noting that the units should not be sold or displayed before November 6, 2020. November 6, 2020 is technically a full year prior to November 5th, 2021, the warranty end date featured above. If both these pictures are legitimate, the evidence suggests that the next-gen lineup of Xbox consoles will launch on November 6, 2020. Yesterday, Microsoft confirmed a November launch window for the Xbox Series X, which gives these leaks some extra credibility. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the link here of the controller, of course, that we had for the Xbox Series S as well too. So here's the actual pictures. Like, hopefully this tweet did not actually get taken down. Let's see.
And
I'm actually trying to bring the tweet
I
up
think
right
I still have the article in our chat,
now. Okay, I got the tweet up right here with it though too. So,
but
or they actually got the tweet up here.
yeah,
So,
and of course,
yeah.
earlier in the week, there was the leak of the actual controller, and we got the leak that there's going to be a Series X, because
Series
on the side
S,
of the
Series
box,
S.
or Series S, excuse me, on the side of the packaging, it was shown that it does say compatible with Xbox Series X, and then there's a spacer bar like a pipe, and then S, and then Xbox One, Microsoft, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Um, so we found out that there is for sure going to be a Series X, but the confirmation of the alleged confirmation of a release date is directly in correlation with this, or at least the original one.
Mm-hmm.
And I can confirm from the original picture from the side of a box that is what a vendor box looks like. Working at GameStop for a good many years, that's what the vendors would get as a street date
Mm-hmm.
box for controllers. That would be the exact approximate size of the packaging. I want to say you get 4 in a package usually
Yep.
of the controllers.
Yep, that sounds right. Because when I used to work for a couple different electronic companies as well, though, to our electronic retailers, that was the same thing. As we had
Right.
embargoes for stuff, and for anybody who worked a Black Friday, you knew you'd see pallets or boxes that said "Do not open until." The Black Friday event or something. So I 100% agree. That's correct packaging marks in that. So
Now,
yeah.
that being said, working at an electronics store, um, and me working at GameStop, um, there's always been controllers that seem to release prior to the console release. And I know that and this is just me kind of throwing my 2 cents in. But I know that if you Google PlayStation release, it says something like the 18th of November, which, if you think about it, if that were to correspond, that would put it 2 weeks out from the controller. But if you put it roughly the controller to launch a week ahead of the console for people to pick up controllers, then we're looking at about a week difference for the console launches, if that PlayStation date that everyone seems to have picked and put up on Google is correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that's what we're going to see, is we're actually going to see this within the holiday season, but we're going to be seeing this console launch
That being
before the
said,
holidays.
yeah, I do think if not the 5th, it will definitely be within the first 2 weeks of November.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So I had a couple pictures up there on
That, and it does also seem to correspond with all the dates we've been looking at for game releases as well, or assumed dates. So
True. Yeah, and so, I had that there on the I had that there on the screen though too, Kyle. What I was showing in the background were the pictures of the leaked Xbox Series S controller, and it actually being paired up to an Xbox One and being detected as one of the new controllers.
right.
So, good sign at least all around that, it definitely did prove its legitimacy, that when it was connected to an Xbox One, that it did, after, an update in that it actually did show as being a legitimate Xbox One controller. So,
Which also goes to show that if you did manage to get your hands on the controller, that the update's already been pushed to recognize the new controllers.
well, you remember back when the Xbox One came out, the original Xbox One, that they were going to have a developer mode to it that anybody could get to. And so my guess is that was probably something that a lot of people forgot existed, and I think it carried on, if my memory serves me right, that it carried on through the 1S and the 1X as as a feature, because that's just base level software. So it would not surprise me that, of course, everybody having these developer features on there, that it exists there in some form, or has existed there in some form for some time. But that does at least lead to the fact that this has been out there for a while anyway. People are at least using these controllers in their own homes, the developers and those who work on the Xbox as well. But man, November 5th. I mean, what a day of all days to actually pick, for the release. But I guess that's probably going to be better for them, because then what you're talking about is, especially with COVID-19, limiting exposure at the stores and not releasing your console during the actual big part of the holiday shopping season, which would be, from Black Friday till, Christmas Eve.
Yeah,
So,
and I do want to also kind of point out, it's a little odd to see the street date boxes come out this early. I wonder if that's more of something that is already, packed away at the warehouse, ready to ship to the retailer. That's where we're seeing these pictures from. Because, yeah, usually a retailer, you see them max 3 weeks, maybe a month. A month is pushing it beforehand.
True. I wonder if
they don't like to have those products sit in the back rooms for too long.
True. I wonder if part of it, though, really kind of comes down to the actual pandemic itself. And it's okay, you really want to make sure you're actually hitting this release date, that they ramped up production much faster, which has me kind of happy on one side and concerned on the other. The happy part, or at least, the eager part of it, though, is that means that inventory of the consoles, accessories, and any games that are going to be branded as Series X or S, they are going to be out there, and they're already out there now, and they're crated up and ready to start getting out to retailers. The part that concerns me in the midst of everything along on the pandemic, how many of these accessories, how many of these controllers, and even how many of these consoles are we going to see that may have possibly been rushed because of the pandemic and the concerns surrounding getting their actual materials. How many of these are we going to see coming back and having issues just like the first gen Xbox 360 with the Red Ring of Death?
Yeah, or even the original VCR model Xbox One with power supplies cutting out or
That's a big one.
bad boards.
That's a very
So,
big one. Yes, and as the owner
yeah.
of a original gen Xbox One, yeah, that's absolutely, yeah, and you are right. It
Yeah,
does look like a
because
giant VCR.
I have an actual day one unit, came in the day one unit box and with the controller. I've long since traded away the controller, but I still have the unit. It just does not function anymore. So
Right. See, yeah, and mine doesn't function. The controller that came with my Xbox doesn't. And I saw a really neat thing on Reddit where someone actually did an exploded shadow box of their Xbox One controller, and so they had
oh, that's kind of
all
neat.
the parts put up of the Xbox One controller just broken apart, which looked really cool. So they took it apart and then mounted it. So I want to do that with that controller because it's the white Xbox One controller. Because I have the white Xbox One, and that's what I would
Ah.
like to do. And so I think that'd be neat to have a shadow box to hang up in here somewhere. Maybe I'll move
Mhm.
some of the Power Ranger stuff to the side to fit it. But that is it, everybody, for this week's news. I'm really glad that all the technical issues that we experienced last week are now gone. So thank you so much, of course, for being able to hop in here with us and check out this week's news. Definitely a lot to take in, a lot to follow up on, of course, now that we've got the Xbox Series X street date possibly released. We've got all the chaos going on with Apple and Epic Games and Google. We're not going to be seeing Halo this year. What other games are coming up next on the list that we're not going to be seeing? And the only way that we're going to find out is that if we get all that news together and we sit here and talk about it. So, with that segue, of course, thank you so much, everybody, for stopping in and checking out this week's news live stream with us, the NPCs. Don't forget to check us out, specifically our podcast. That is the main big thing about us. We are on anchor.fm/the-npcs-podcast. You can find links to all the platforms that we are supported on there. You can also get links to our social media pages. We're on Twitter and Facebook at the NPCs. Of course, if you're watching us here on Facebook, please make sure to hit the like button there for us so you're actually seeing when we put up updates when we go live, of course, the news stream, and we have podcasts up going too. Also, if you're watching here on YouTube, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. That helps us out as well. We're very bad about putting YouTube videos up, but of course, a lot of that is because life happens. But Kyle, thanks for joining me as always, dude. And of course, to you, the audience, thank you so much for stopping in here and hanging out with us. We will catch you guys all later.
I